are you, lovely lot, and welcome to the beautiful Birch House Lakes on the Dove Lake, where it is basics time yet again. And this time we are covering all things Waggler. Can't wait for this. You all know how much I love Waggler fishing, folks, and it's probably, I'm going to say it's one of the most popular methods of fishing, but to be honest, in my style of fishing, you know, matches, it doesn't really come into it overly often. Obviously the pole's so dominating, certainly on the venues that I fish, Snake Lakes and that. But the beauty of this particular part of the Dove Lake is we're in sort of like a new bowl that was newly dug a few years ago. It's around sort of like 5 foot deep in most places. There's a few like little bars and that, and it lends itself perfect to the Waggler. My only issue being today though, folks, is the wind's blooming done a 180 and it's like slightly coming in my face, and it was off my back before. But anyway, so what we're going to talk about, I'm going to talk to you about the floats first. No, I'm not. I'm going to talk you through the setup first, and then the floats that I'm using, and then for what situations that you'd use the floats, but obviously keeping it really basic. It's a lovely way of fishing. You know what I mean? You can catch all manner of fish, great big uns, little babby ones. For today, obviously, we're into autumn now. Where are we? We're sort of like into the second week of October, and it's just started to go a little bit colder at nights. So I'm just going to be fishing 4mm pellets. If I went down like the maggot route, I wouldn't be able to get the distance where I need to get to on the Waggler, and also the small fish can still potentially be a little bit of a problem this time of year because they're still on a bit of a feed up for winter. So that's why we're going down the pellets route. But enough about that later. Rich told me don't waffle too much, Andrew, but you know what I'm like, folks. So basic setups then, folks. What are we looking for? First things first, come onto the reel. Around about a 3000 size. I wouldn't say, you know, if all you've got is like a 4000, that'll do, but ideally a little bit smaller. Main line, now coming into, obviously we're into autumn, coming into winter, I do like to go finer on my main line, and that allows me to fish lighter wagglers, so I can catch some of these fish through the water if that's how they're feeding. So 0.16 of a diameter. And what I tend to do is use, you know, like your normal pole rig line, I'll use that as my main line in the winter because there's not as much, you know, harshness going on certainly on the fish because you're fishing lighter. And it just travels through your rod ring so nice and smooth using the finer main line. So 0.16, this is actually Aki power. So loaded that up to the lip of the spool, again, you know, because of that friction. If your line was too thick, it just causes your float to slow down when you're casting. So make sure that's loaded. Now, rod size next. What rod should you use? I'm going to say minimum of 12 foot up to 13 foot. You don't really want to be using 11 foot, certainly 10 foot, so a big no-no, but 11 foot Waggler rods for like traditional Waggler fishing. Them 11 footers are good for like pellet Waggler, you know, when everything's sort of like really tight, using heavier floats. But when you're using a traditional Waggler, which we are today, ideally you want that line pickup, so a 12 foot minimum up to a 13 foot rod. And now onto the business end. Let's go from the float first then. So I have got my float on this. I'll go through float separate as well. But basically what we've got on here, we've got an unloaded insert Waggler on, just a Preston's one. And then what we've done, we've got a little Waggler attachment here. That's a 2 gram weight. And you see either side of that, I've just got my little float stops, and I've just got a little snap link swivel. Now down the business end here, I've got 3 number 8 stots. Now the reason I've got them stots there is because if I needed to and I wanted to fish like hard on the bottom or get my bait down really quick, I could bring them down the line. But as it is, I want to fish through the water, you know, really explore what's through the water. We've got sort of like, what, 4.5, 5 foot of depth. So what you'll see me doing is feeding, casting my ring through it, see if I can catch fish through the water. If not, I'm getting all my bites on the bottom, then I will move these stots down. Now, dropped my rod there. The beauty of these is obviously with them being on float stops, you can move them up and down as well, and obviously everything else is on stots, and stots are a lot easier to move on your line. So don't use shots, use stots. Much easier to use. I'll come on to more of the floats later on, but coming down the rig, if you like, I've got 4 number 10 stots. So my first one is probably 20 inches below my Waggler, and then just nice and even, sort of like 8-inch intervals, I've got another sort of 4 stots coming down there. Yeah, so 4 number 10s through the rig, and what that enables me to do is keep that line really tight from my float all the way through my rig to my hook length, which in this case is a little bit different to what I'd normally do on a pole. Pole hook lengths are usually like 4 to 6 inches traditionally. Waggler hook lengths. Look how long that is. There's my loop to loop. It's a 12-inch hook length. I do like to use longer hook lengths on the Waggler, simply because it just falls through so much more natural. You can really keep that tight line, you know, winding down a little bit, keep everything nice and tight. And that is a 0.12 to a size 18s KKM hook with a little babby band on, just so I can use my you know, my 4mm pellet. So really simple. I've plumbed up to sort of like a couple of inches over depth on that, but we've got like a bit of a bar that we're fishing over, so it does come up really shallow, but more about that later on. So that's the rig, dead simple. Let's go on to the floats. So loads and loads of different floats here. We've got, I'll do them in order. We've got a loaded insert, we've got a loaded straight, we've got an unloaded insert with an attachment on, very similar to what I'm using. We've got a crystal Waggler. Again, we've just got a normal one where you just put straight in your line, you put in sort of like your stops around your float, and then again we've got an unloaded insert Waggler as well. So loads and loads of different ones, but when would you use what in what situation? So to be honest with you, these fine loaded insert ones, this is what I'll be using for, like, you know, proper desperate times in the winter. You know, really sensitive when you're dotting them down right there, and you're just seeing everything. Yeah, every little movement on your float. When a fish takes that bait, you're seeing it. That's when I'd use them kind of floats. These straight Wagglers, they're out and out sort of warmer weather, for carp, with pellets, bigger baits, or for like rivers. The trouble with using an insert on a river, it's just going to be sinking it all the time. Whereas obviously these floats are a lot more buoyant. You know, they don't tend to get dragged under the water as much, you know, when the river's towing. So that's what I'd use on a river or for like bigger pellets. These ones are used exactly the same way. In fact, it's what I'm using today, one of these floats. Exactly the same way. The only thing is, obviously, the difference with these ones is I've just got this Waggler attachment at the bottom, so they're really quick. You can interchange them with a little snap link swivel on, you know. So like today, obviously, we've had conditions where it's calm this morning and wind's got up a little bit, so I might have to go a little bit heavier. These floats really similar, but really sensitive. You see the long interchangeable bristle at the top. Long interchangeable bristle, I could, you know, if it's really windy, I could have more sticking out, but it's still really sensitive. That's when I'd use them. That's what I've got on today, actually, folks. One of them ones, a Preston Innovations one, again, with it being an insert, nice and sensitive. And then last of all, the crystal Wagglers. I'm a massive advocate of using these for when the water's like proper clear, but you're getting silvers coming up in the water, you know, for like your ide, your roach, your chub, that kind of thing. When there's, you know, sunlight on the water and it's really piercing through, or the water's clear, that's when them bad boys really do come into their own. What I tend to do is change the weights at the bottom, go a weight heavier than what the float takes, and then you could just put stots either side of that, because you can't get a float attachment on them. Put stots either side of it, and then you're fishing straight away, nice and quick. So that's the floats, that's the setup, and then bait-wise, how simple is this? I keep blooming hurting my thumb with that catapult's an absolute beast. I need that strong catapult today, actually. But bait-wise, we've just got a tub, a 4mm pellet. It's just with some red ones in, so I'm going to put the red ones on the band and then just be feeding sort of like 12 to 15 pellets or something like that. Obviously, finding out what the fish are doing first. If they're feeding through the water, I'll be feeding first and casting into it, but hopefully we'll get them on the bottom, so I'll cast my rig out, sink the line, and then feed some bait. Now, rain started, so we need to get some brollies up. I'll be fishing next, so let's go and get some fishing done. 10 minutes is past then, folks, because we've had a little babby rainstorm and we don't think it's going to rain again, so we can finally get fishing. Plumbing up needs to be done first, so now you all know how much I love to plumb up using a large shot like an SSG or a AAA, something like that. It just flies so much flipping easier through the air rather than using a proper plummet. So first thing we've got to do, I've got my mark on the far bank, which is spare peg. Feather that in round about there, and look if we can see that float. No, so that was about 4.5 foot that set at. Can't see that float, so what I'm going to do now is put it up about 8 inches, something like that, and then just work from there. You can get a really accurate guide, you know what I mean, it's to plumbing up and where you are, that kind of thing. So if I can't see it this time, it's going to go up another 8 inches. Now I know I'm on like a little bit of a bar there. That should be there or thereabouts. Oh yeah, so that's popped up. So what I'll do now is I'm going to knock 4 inches off my float, come back down, and then obviously if I can't see it that time, then I know I would have been there or thereabouts before, so I'll just put it back up 2 inches, and then that'll take me. I mean, that might have been bang on. Oh, it was. So you can see how you can get a really accurate reading. I've done this lots and lots of time before, but it's always good to show you. So you can see there, taking 4 inches off, pull that float back down. Again, the beauty of Waggler as well, because when you're loose feeding, your bait's going over a bit of an area. I don't like clipping up on a Waggler. Certainly, we like when you strike it. See see that straight away as well. Simply because when you're striking, you know, you can get them savage stakes sometimes, and you don't want to be clipping up. If I was chucking to an island or something like that, I'd be clipping up. So I'm just taking a couple of inches off the float that time, and then we'll see where we are. We saw that almost straight away though, so we can't have been that far off. Just bring that out to the right a little bit. I think that's come back a little bit too much. Just had a little bit of wind there, folks. It's just blown that blooming Waggler back. So what I'm going to do is overcast where I need to go, just to make sure I'm in the spot, and then bring it back there. That's where I need to be, around there. So we just about see it. So I saw that float pop up and then disappear almost straight away. So that tells me that I am on depth, but obviously not too much over depth. I'm on depth, but because it's a tight line with the wind, it's blowing it off depth straight away. So what I'm going to do is just put that up a couple of inches, and we should be absolutely bang on there. So literally put them stops. So what is going on with this wind? But it's done a full 180, that wind. So what I'll do, like I've just done then with the plumbing up, overcast, and I'll sink the line. I'm forced to sink the line now. I love floating my line because I think you're into the fish a lot quicker, but the trouble I've got now, if I left my line floating, it's going to end up in a massive bow and I'll just miss every single blooming bite going. So I'm going to have to sink my line, unfortunately, but it's not too much of a thing. I mean, I would sink my line anyway if I was like, you know, on venues where you're not getting loads of bites, you're not getting fish through the water, you're waiting for a bite. I'd always sink the line, because you can wait for, you know, up to like 8, 9, 10 minutes sometimes waiting for bites on some venues. I'm hopefully not expecting that today though, folks. I will say the only trouble we're going to have is getting some bait out there. So we'll see what's what. So I've just got literally a tiny little banded red pellet on there. So I'm using Sonny Baits hard pellets, and the beauty of the hard pellets, with the Sonny Baits ones in particular, they have got some red pellets running through them, so absolutely bang on. I do like a red pellet for the hook. And as I said, what I've got down the line. We've got 4 number 10 stops. So I'm going to overcast this one, just feather it there, and then sink that line and have that under the water. We've just gone a little bit to the right of our marker there, and I'm going to see if we can get some pellets out. Has that gone? Yeah, they've blown a little bit to the right though. So I'm not putting loads in, so I'll put a bit more to the left. And that'll do for now. Oh, we had a bite straight away then, folks. I'm not going to put loads in to start with. I almost don't want these fish to come off the bottom. So I'll just use them for a bit, because I want to see what's happening with the fish first. So again, overcast it, get that rod right over to the left and see what's happening. I've got a rod rest today just for ease of when I catapult some bait in, but when I'm not catapulting bait in, I'm going to have it in front of me like I normally do. A little bite then. Oh, go on then. Oh, I didn't take long, did it? So if I'd have carried on feeding then, obviously, to try and bring them off the bottom, that kind of thing, it's just, I'm getting too much of a spread on my bait, you know, with how that wind is. Now you see I'm playing these fish, I'm playing them high. I don't like playing them high, but because we've got a bit of a bar out there, and then sort of like channels either side of them, just allowing them fish to swim through that bar. That was lovely, that, folks, wasn't it? I wasn't expecting that. Normally takes a little bit of time. Got to be an F1. Got to be an F1. Beautiful in here as well, folks. Absolutely stunning. So that fish, obviously, that took it on the drop, that, and that's what I want to do. I don't want to sink the line, because I just want to cast my float in, feather it down so everything's in a tight line, and wait for that bite through the water. But I can't do that today because of the wind at the minute, unfortunately. But that didn't take long at all. Go on, F1s. Go on, F1s. proper angry. It's proper deep under my rod tip here. I bet we've got a right depth on the pole. It must be 6 foot there, 5 or 6 foot. I'm not going nuts playing them either, because don't forget we've only got like a .12, there we go, .12 up length on. But how's about that for a first fish of the day then? Beautiful. Look at that for F1. Beautiful F1. Probably about £1.3, something like that. Stunning fish. A lot of these I've been blooming caught before. In such good nick. Yeah, so what I'd potentially like to happen, certainly with F1s like that. Now, that's another thing as well that I need to mention. Feeling the fish and feeling the actual temperature of them. That fish felt blooming warm. Obviously, the air temperature's a lot colder at the minute than what them fish are. So that'll be another reason that them fish will come up in the water as well. And things like this, getting on that Richard, I've literally just noticed that. Slime, that's like halfway between my hook bait and my float. It's a slime. Pick out for things like that. So obviously that's telling you that there's, there's fish off the bottom up in the water, but that could have been from coming back over that bar. We don't know, but it's things like that to keep an eye on. I'm not going to change that pellet. That pellet looks all right. I'm going to chuck it in again. And then so as I cast, no, that's gone a bit to the right there. I'm going to bring that back and I'm going to talk you through feathering actually. Because feathering is so important. You see, I've got a nice big drop from my rod tip to my waggler. Minimum, ideally, of like 4 foot. And what I like to do is I'll always come over my left shoulder, and as I go to cast it, see, I'm giving it quite a bit of force. As I go to cast it, I'm almost following the waggler down with me rod tip. And just before that float hits the water, I want to completely stop the float so that my hook bait goes past my float, so everything's in a nice tight line. Again, that's just landed a little bit to the right. But the bait that I fed beforehand, some of it went out to the right, so I'm not overly fussed. Rich might be having kittens with his big doofer, might not be able to zoom in on it, but I'm just going to get some bait in. Let that bend round. So I can't get that bait out there. So it'd be pointless me just like feeding and feeding and feeding to try and bring them fish up in the water, just because I can't get the bait out there. And I know that coming a little bit closer in, I'm just on a bit of a bar there, whereas if I go on the other side, it's dropping off into deeper water. So what you could do as well is obviously, if they are starting to come up, is feed first and then cast into it. But at the moment, I'm forced. So you see then, as I casted, nice tight line, completely stop the float with your fingers, and then your float lands and then your bait lands past it. So just so everything's in a nice tight straight line. That's better. That's perfect. I'm just going to bring that float back a tiny little bit. There we go. And we're going to get ready now. So you see my rod tip slightly submerged under the water as well. Whenever I sink the line, it's important that you do that, because if you don't, you have your rod out like that and that wind's blowing your line back, that's your first point of contact. Whereas I always like to make sure, I'm just going to give that a little twitch, I'm always in direct contact to my float, that everything is nice and tight. I wasn't expecting a fish that quick. I thought it'd take a few minutes to, get bites and what have you, but just shows you the beauty of this venue. Birchhouse Lakes, it's flipping. There's so many fish in the lakes, folks. It's just superb. That wind is... Oh, was that a bite then? I think that was a bite then, but I missed it. I can't... Is that a bite? Yeah, he's like... Oh, we bumped him. So I should have hit that bloody first one, but I couldn't see me float properly because of the ripples. I'm sure it moved a bit first. It twitched that then, CEO? Yeah, CEO was even having it as well. So change that bait. We bumped that one. Felt that one on. So we probably foul looked at it as it going to spat me blooming bait out. But let's try that again. So cast well past it, feather that down, sink your line on the rod rest. So you see what kind of rhythm I'm in? That's probably landed a little tiny bit shorter, but not too bad. The beauty of pellets, obviously, because they're quite selective, you can definitely feed them up too quick. They're still eating this time of year, don't get me wrong, but the colder it gets, you can definitely feed them up too quick if you fed it like you would maggots, casters, pretty much all the time, keeping that bait going in. Definitely don't want to do that with pellets, unless you're getting lots of signs and swirls that they are coming off the bottom. That's when you can really get them competing. Almost sort of, that was a little dink then, almost sort of like pellet waggler style, where you'd feed first. In fact, let me talk you through that, where you'd feed first and then cast into it. So if it is, the fish are feeding, get your bait in there first and then cast into it. like so. Yeah, I'm not going to sink the line this time, even though we've got a bit of a ripple on. I'm just going to keep that line nice and tight, see if they are coming to that. Don't think they will do, because my float's not going to be in there long enough before I get too much of a horrible bow in my line. If that float just goes slow, then it's because it's come back onto that shelf a little bit and it's just sinking. I'm waiting for a nice, fast, positive bite. So you see, that's just going dead slow, so that's just dragging on the bottom. So obviously it proves it we're on the bottom, but it's nowhere near good enough that I need to sink the line. But I just wanted to run through what I meant by feeding first and casting into it. So if you've got a lot of fish competing up in the water, that's the way to do it. It's landed a bit out to the left, but when I sink the line, it should come back round. It's probably about a foot, 2 foot to the left of where my marker was, but quite happy. It was about straight away then, so that was through the water. See, unfortunate conditions at the minute just not allowing me to fish how I want to. Another way of catching these fish is winding into them as well. So once you've cast it in, you've fed the bait, I'm going to use that bait that I've just fed that last time and start winding ever so slowly. So if we get a bite, everything's dead tight. That can work really well sometimes, especially for, you know, fast biting fish like eyed, roach, chub, things like that, and F1s obviously. So that's sat nice now. I'm going to stop winding. That's sat lovely there now. What I'm waiting for is them little dinks. Anything slow, it's just dragging a little bit too much. So what I might have to do is just, oh, that was a little dink then. Forgot to strike though, didn't I? Oh, is he on? Is he on? I want to make sure this time. So what you can do is obviously take one of them number 8 stots that I've got around my float. I could take one of them off. That's just dragging on the bottom. I'm just going to give it a little twitch. But it's such a fabulous way of fishing a waggler. It's just absolutely brilliant. Time flies by as well because you're always on the go. That kind of thing. Look at that, dotted right down. You just see it just tripping through ever so slowly. There's no, I'm going to say, there's no mistaking a proper bite though, which is what that was. Right, I'm going to cast that in again and then feed round it. Let that just drift a little bit, just to bring him round. There we go. Yeah, that's perfect. Just going to get some baiting on that. That wind's just got up a little bit again. The fact you are keeping everything nice and tight as well. Again, when them fish are proper having it, they will hook themselves. I think what we're missing a few bites from at the minute is going to be quite a few silvers in here, like certainly roach and little road skimmers and things like that. So it'll probably be them, but also, you know, flipping it, you know, you know how F1s feed as well. So there's a few fish there now. So what I'm going to try this time is I'm going to feed first, cast into it, simply line, but wind back ever so slow. I'm going to try that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to feed first. Again, cast past, but sink the line now. I've not taught you through how to sink the line, so I want to do that as well. So cast well past, feather. Rod tip goes under the water, a couple of foot, and then as you're whipping your rod up, you're winding as well at the same time. And then keeps everything nice and tight, and that line will completely sink. That's how you sink your line. All too often I see anglers just sort of like doing that, and that's nowhere near good enough. You need to really force your rod through the water. Now I'm just going to wind ever so slow on this. If your float's sinking, then obviously just take a shot off when you're doing this, but by keeping everything nice and tight, it can really work well. The only trouble I've got, as I say, is I've got a bar there, so it shallows up really quick. But if them fish are having it like in a normal depth of water, if you like, and you didn't have a bar and it was all the same depth, then this can be an absolutely deadly tactic. Right, I don't want to wind it back much further than that because you're on that bar. See, you can just see it just dropping ever so slow there, ever so gently. That means we're just on that bar, just on the bottom a little bit there. If it goes quick, then obviously it's proper bite, but anything slow, just dragging on the bottom a little bit. So with a facing wind like this, you could, oh, I bumped him. You could potentially get away with not sinking your line. It's only when it sort of like moves out to the side. So what I'll do this time, I'm not going to sink the line this time. I'm going to cast in and not sink the lines. It should keep it nice and tight. Isn't that? Oh, It's gone up to the right a little bit. Bad cast, Andrew. If you do a bad cast, so I mean, obviously it's one of them with a waggler, because your bait's going over a big area. Don't worry about it. The only reason I've brought that back is because Richard keeps giving me funny looks. Says, Andrew, get it on the camera. Obviously he's got to keep changing his big doofer. I can't get them pellets out far enough at the minute. Typical, innit? That wind was lovely on your back before. Right, so I'm going to leave that as it is. So everything... You saw how quick that was. So everything's nice and tight. And I was going to say you don't really miss many bites, but fast biting fish, you're always going to miss them. Oh, see, that's gone well out to the right again. Bloody gust of wind. Fast biting fish like your roach, your road, your F1s, you are going to miss them. And chub. Right, let's see if we can... Just going to wind down ever so slow on that to keep everything nice and tight. That wind's coming back towards us. Oh, I missed him. But we can leave it in place again. Just keep winding back ever so slow. You can get sort of like 2 or 3 goes at them. Again, because your feed's going over a big area, you can get a few goes on them sometimes. I'm just try and get some more pellets out again. Let you go in there. Yeah, not too bad. And keep everything nice and tight. I think the silverfish, I don't think they're F1s. Yeah, it was a tiny silverfish that. I felt that for a split second. We've got a little bit of slime on that pellet. Yeah, we've got a tiny little bit of slime on that pellet. Get that off. Little tiny silverfish. Right. That wind's nice at the minute. I'm just going to bring that back. Keep that tight. See if we can get some pellets on the float. Oh, that's lovely that. Right, that's in place now. Come on. That's perfect that. Oh, this... They're so blooming fast. So again, they are coming off bottom. That was probably like not even 2 foot under the water, that. Not even 2 foot. So what I'll do this time, I'm just going to have that rod to the side and just ever so slowly wind back. See if we can come. Wait, see what they are. There we go. See what I mean? That's silverfish, is it? Skimmer? Is it an F1? But see what I mean about keeping that line tight? If it was like conditions are absolutely bang on for it now, so I'll continue to do that. No, they are F1s. They are F1s. It's typical F1s. Is it? Or is it a roach? Oh no, I said it was a skimmer, didn't I? So that's what, you know. Oh, it's a hybrid actually. So fish like that, you know, you will be missing out on them. But you know, it's all about experimenting on the day. Obviously, I've set up to fish on the bottom. But if them fish are coming off the bottom, then the beauty of this rig, and it's so versatile, you can, you know, knock a little bit of depth off and go from that way. If that wind stays nice, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm just showing you how versatile this rig is. So what I'm going to do now is bring my float back to this start here, which is what, probably a good 2 foot shallower, something like that. Is that wind going to get up again? No, it's all right. I'm going to show you what I mean anyway, and then we can proper focus on feeding first, casting past it, and then drawing your float back, winding ever so slow. And what I will do is just knock a number 8 off, because when you're winding, your float obviously is going to sit that little bit lower in the water. So all I've done there, nice and simple, I've brought my float back to that first dropper, so it's probably 2 foot shallow where I was fishing, and we've just got 3 number 10s down the rig now. So I'm still going to be keeping everything nice and tight through the rig, so potentially don't miss as many bites. But I've said it now, I'm going to miss bites. But this tactic, certainly this time of year when the fish are still having it a little bit, you know, obviously it's good to see that they're still coming off the bottom, then it can work really well rather than hitting them, you know what I mean, striking. You've seen what they're like, how many bites have we missed? It can be a nightmare. So most important thing, feed first, but not there, because that's gone out a bit to the right, so we'll put some more in. Hopefully they'll mend round. Yeah, perfect. And then I'm going to cast slightly past it, and that wind gets up right on cue. Cast slightly past it, rod tip on the rest, and just keep winding ever so slow. There we go. See what I mean? Straight away. So that's what we've been missing before, folks. Little tiny silverfish. Now I'm going to do the opposite this next time. Even though I've had one straight away, you're like, why are you changing, Andrew? I am going to show you the difference with how many you miss by striking. So I'm going to feed again. Look at that, right in top lip. 9.8 out of 10 in. I'll leave that pellet on. So I'm going to do it different and show you. Hopefully I'll miss the bite so I can like prove that what I'm saying is right. But I'm probably going to hit it straight away. So again, feed first. They've gone horrendous. That wind's just got up. Come on, blooming conditions. So feed first. I'm going to catch a seagull. Cast past. Cast past. And then what I'm going to do this time, bring that into the feed. I'm going to strike this time. And I'll probably miss it because I'm fishing off the bottom. Again, you know, you'll have days where you do hit them, but the way it's been today, them silvers have just been you know what I mean, even though we've not been fishing for long, they've not been easy to hit. And some of them will be F1s as well. Come on, get a bite then. Come on. Do you see what I'm doing with that? Yeah, so missed that one. That's the difference. You do miss bites when you set sort of, certainly on this, even like when a pole as well sometimes, you know what it's like on that. When you've got like a proper tight line, you can miss bites. I'm going to go back to the winding back way. So bring that back in, cast past it, right, rod on your rest, and just keep everything nice and low. There we go. That proves it in a oneer, the difference between winding, keeping everything nice and tight. You don't miss hardly any. And I'm glad it happened actually. But it's them fish, that's what we've been missing before. Perfect in this. That is 10 out of 10 as well, Rich. Come on, get on that little roach. 10 out of 10. He's on it. But yeah, that perfectly sums up how versatile, and I think that's it. That's all I need to show you. Basics, innit? How versatile the rig is. So obviously we started off on the deck. Had the F1 straight away, didn't we? That was lovely. But then, you know, the wind's not ideal, but obviously we can still fish a waggler in less than ideal situations. I've just like shown you can do. And then obviously we've shallowed up a little bit, and then we've been through that winding the fish on. It's so important that when the fish are feeding like they are, or you know, you've got your fast biting fish, it's all about feeding your bait first, casting past, bringing it back in and winding down. Then we took a shot off as well, so we can always see that float, but generally the fish hook themselves, you can actually feel it on your rod tip. I would suggest a little rod rest fishing this style of fishing and have a little bit of an angle rather than sort of like pointing your rod tip at it. Just so you're almost sort of tip fishing, aren't you, in effect. But what I'd look to do now, obviously, as this session progresses, I'd definitely be looking to like up the fish. That was hard for me to say that. I've just seen Rich like, what did you say then? As the session gets longer, I'd definitely be looking to feed, cast into it, bring them up in the water. They're happy to be there. I've noticed the odd F1 coming up in the water as well, so they're obviously happy to be there. Whereas being on the bottom, obviously, just takes that a little bit longer to get a bite. But that's what it's all about, you know. Waggler fishing, it's brilliant. It's sort of like back to your roots, if you like. You know, when I first started, there was no poles out or anything like that. That's why I think I love, you know, rod and line fishing so much. So I hope you've enjoyed it, folks. Get out there, give it a go, and let us know how you get on. Go on the Waggler.
What have I got to do?
Right, do you know what you've not... I know I don't say it on ours, do I? Please, please, please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification button, and that's going to tell you when we are putting out these fantastic videos. Go ahead. Are you going to leave all that pause bit in at the end?